Today we are going to go over to the cemetery and we are going to clean the graves. This is what I'm bringing to the cemetery. This bucket with a gallon of water, some gloves, brush, and then rather than the D2 that they always recommend, I'm using the equivalent of Dawn, but with like phthalate free. Gentle. I'm also bringing that 3-gallon jug of water. But let me show you a couple of pictures. Mainly I want to clean my great-grandmother Mary's grave and Henry. Henry's here too. I'm in their house, blessed to buy their house back. This is Henry here too. So Henry's grave. In that picture, his grave, Emil's grave, Carol's grave, Eddie's grave, Claire's grave, and Hilda's grave. I also will be cleaning my cousin Kent's grave, my Uncle Red's grave, and I will try to clean father, and I may do my great-great-great-grandparents' graves to be washed. Hilda is buried. Emil, Marie and Red, and Kent are buried. This is where my great-grandparents are buried. Doesn't look awful, but Claire and Carol's grave don't look great. Never in a million years did I think I was going to do this, but let's do it. Never met them, but there's bird poop basically on their grave. This has most likely not been cleaned up at least since the 1990s when Carol over there was still somewhat lucid. So it's been, 20, 25 years at least. I would probably guarantee that their kids, their sons and daughters did clean them while they were alive and while they were doing well. But Mary died, Mary died in 1947. She actually just laid down after dinner on the couch and just died after making an amazing meal. Henry was almost 90 years old. I think he was like 89, and he had Alzheimer's. Obviously hard for him to live without his lovely bride. He died in 1958. Taking this gallon of water, pouring it in the bucket, whole thing, up a bit. I'm putting this whole gallon in here because I have 3 more gallons. It makes kind of a lot, but this gets dirty fast. My great-grandfather Henry Zopp was 16 when he came over from Beikheim, Germany to Mendota, Illinois. His brother had already been here, as were some cousins. So he settled in and he worked on the farm, eventually starting this restaurant business. He did meet his bride, who was 9 years younger than him, Anna Marie Langley. He was 27 and she was 19. They started having kids. Eventually they had 9 kids. Most of them are buried in this cemetery, with the exception of my grandmother, who's buried in another cemetery, and a couple of their other kids. Now, I think since we're here in the general vicinity, Claire gets to have a bath. Now, Claire was born in 1907. She was everybody's favorite great aunt. She never had kids, but she married this guy named Doc Siegel, and she was sort of a wild kid. She was hanging around like the Al Capone, the fun crew, right? He died when she was relatively young, and he just made her his bride on his deathbed. And so she inherited all this money and then basically lived her best life. Never had kids, but she kind of spoiled all of her great nieces and nephews, especially Kent, who's buried over there. So we're going to clean Claire's grave. She drove a Cadillac, always had a dog, smoked like a chain. She would talk and she'd have like a mink stole on and a little dog in her hand, was wearing a wig, and her eye always twitched. This is when she got older. 5 minutes, it's still drying up, but look at how much better that looks. But you can also see how it's lightening up already. Look, it's so much clearer, and hers is clearer too, and it'll be even better when it dries. I love that they're buried underneath this tree. Carol was a twin, lived to be 97 years old. She was so eccentric. She was an artist. She was a fashion artist, and so was her sister. She graduated from the Chicago Art Institute And then she did all of this fashion illustration in Chicago and married this guy who owned this department store named Ronnie Stoner. He died, she came back to Mendota. She kind of just lived off of her, you know, inheritance. She had an apartment over there's a bar called The Hub, but we had owned the bar at the time, and there was this great apartment. She made it look really elegant, but she was eccentric. She would like walk around town picking up garbage. She was very well beloved, and she's buried here. She was born in 1911 and she died February 6th of 2008. Look, it's already starting to clear up. It's so amazing. We're moving over there for their older siblings. We have all of those graves. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 of them over there. Okay, so this is Hilda. She's like the matriarch of the family, the oldest of the kids. Died in 1994. Lived in that house her entire life. This is Eddie, who died in 1963 at the age of 62, unexpectedly in his room. May need to get more water. Kind of running low, but you know what, I may do this in 2 days. I don't know, we'll see. I'm really excited about the progress on Grandma and Grandpa's, or Mom Pa's grave. So let's do these 2 first. So Hilda was the first of the 9 children, and she lived in the house her entire life with Emil, who was the youngest. Eddie lived in the house until he passed away when he was just 62 years old. He died in his bedroom unexpectedly. Eddie was an amazing guy. He was sort of like the family photographer. Just took all these pictures of the family constantly. They had a dark room in the basement. I just did a video about that. And I think he died of a heart issue that was unexplained. Very sad that day when they found him. You always want to get it wet first. Sort of a sad story. My Aunt Marie was my grandmother Ella, who's buried at another cemetery about 30 miles from here. Sister, she died in 1885. I think she was in her 70s. Going to the grocery store, she was a little bit overweight. Looking at recipes, she just died, just went down. 14 months later, my cousin Kent, he was just 35 years old. He was running in California, he was near Berkeley, and he just died. He had like some kind of, I don't know, undiagnosed heart thing. And so his dad, Red, ended up having to live the rest of his life without his entire family. Let me show you the results, and we will come back for a second round, but that was amazing. I will not be doing great grandparents today. We will get to that another day, but let me show you. Look at this grave. I'm not even done. I didn't even swipe. I didn't even do the sides. I just did the facade mainly. I did a little bit on the sides. Claire's, she hadn't had a bath in years. Carol's is still drying. You know that they're happy that this was done wherever they are. Praise God. Eddie, some of them didn't have grandchildren, so we're like the closest thing. Emil's is being completed as we speak. And then these 2 I just washed, and they're drying. That's one of the most satisfying things I've ever done, is to sort of honor your ancestors by, you know, cleaning their graves. And I know some of you probably think, oh, what's the big deal? They're dead. Like, these people sacrificed so much so I could even be alive, all of them. Claire didn't have kids or grandkids. Carol didn't. Hilda, Emil, Eddie, they didn't have grandkids. Like, we're the grandchildren. And then Marie and Red, they didn't have grandchildren because Kent died so early. We're the great nieces and nephews, and then the great grandchildren, and they just were so dynamic, such dynamic people, and they made such an impact on my life, and I'm living in their home now. Some type of weird, interesting phenomenon of nature, supernatural, blessed me with the ability to buy the home that I spent so much time in. Even though I never met Henry and Mary, I get to live in their house. So I feel so blessed to be able to reconstruct this part of history. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe to Hot for History. We will show you more, tell you more about my ancestors. And I so appreciate you guys even having any interest, because they weren't famous, right? But they did make a huge impact on the world. I'm gonna have some iced tea that I prepared, and I'm just gonna sit and say a prayer. Praise God that I am alive to be able to do this one little thing that they totally would have done for me.